in the dying embers of human existence, as the asteroid, a behemoth the size of Texas, hurtles relentlessly toward Earth. The world braces for an apocalyptic end. Deep beneath the bunker, a refuge plunges into the bowels of the earth. Here the chosen gather, their purpose clear, to preserve the very soul of our civilization. The 35 and 70 millimeter prints that encapsulate the magic, the emotion, and the dreams of generations past. These masterpieces, each frame a testament to the human spirit, are carefully cataloged and cradled in the cavernous confines of the bunker. Perhaps there was room for more, for friends and family yearning for salvation, but sacrifices must be made. The movie nerds stand united, the keepers of a flame, promising a future where the art of storytelling endures, transcending the boundaries of time and space. God help us all.
Greetings from the Humongous, the Lord Humongous, the warrior of the wasteland, the Ayatollah of rock and roller.
Welcome to Back to the Frame Rate, part of the Western Media Podcast Network. Join us as we watch and discuss films on VOD and streaming platforms, deliberating on whether each one is worthy of salvation or destined for destruction in the face of the impending asteroid apocalypse. I am Nathan Shore, and accompanying me are the extraordinary movie mavens, Brianna Butterworth, Sam Cole. And with us is a special guest. He is an award-winning actor and a voice artist and producer of live theater and film, a podcaster. And with his son, Addison, they are the owners and CEOs of TwitchTwitch Productions and Green Treez Company. And of course, the Macabre Faire Film Festival. We welcome to the podcast, Adam Ginsberg.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you very much. Thank you, Nathan, for inviting me. It's pretty exciting to be back on some sort of radio program. I appreciate it.
Well, it's wonderful to have you, and we'll get into a little bit of how we met in a little bit. But before that, this is a hypothetical question that I want to ask everyone here. I hope you're ready for this.
I'm not ready.
Well, you're walking.
There was a real intake of breath there from everyone.
You're in a desert walking along, and don't ask, this could be any desert. In the sand, and all of a sudden you look down and you see a tortoise, and it's crawling towards you. Everybody know what a tortoise is?
Yes.
Okay. You reach down and flip the tortoise on its back. The tortoise lays on its back, and its belly is baking in the hot sun, beating its legs and trying to turn itself over.
Nate, what the hell?
Not without your help, but you're not helping. Why is that, B?
I don't know. I wouldn't do this.
Was that the question?
Yes.
I would turn the tortoise over immediately, help the tortoise, like pour some water on it to cool it down, and be like, "You're a good tortoise, and I wish you well." And I
would sacrifice some of my precious water and gasoline in this desert to keep this tortoise safe. Oh my god!
I would save the tortoise. I can't hurt a tortoise.
You came upon the tortoise like that, or you flipped the tortoise over on its back?
It's just a question.
I didn't catch the beginning of it. It's important to my answer.
Want me to read it again?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. My answer changes based on which that is.
I don't know if anyone really gets this reference.
I'm not getting. What could you be referencing?
Has anyone seen Blade Runner?
Yes.
Oh my God. Are you asking if I'm a replicant? Oh my God.
Well, so if
it's
I was
just the kind of thing a replicant would do.
If I came upon it and it was struggling, I would probably flip it. But if I flipped it in the first place, then I had a reason for flipping it, and I'd leave it there.
Okay.
Where am I?
I'll accept that answer.
I'd have to help it no matter what, because like the tortoise would probably outlive me anyway. Isn't it going to live to like 120 or something? Like,
yeah. Remember, folks, turtles flippers, tortoise feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or I could just flip the tortoise over, leave it there, punch it, and be like Will Smith and be like, welcome to Earth, and then walk away.
I am kind of disappointed that I didn't get it was a Blade Runner question. That is the Blade Runner question. Mm-hmm. I love that movie.
Okay, so...
Knew I was out of my element. I told you that.
Has nothing to do with the movie we're watching.
It doesn't.
The fact that you're walking through a desert. I struggled this week, everyone. I'm sorry. I was like trying to find something. There's only so many questions about the apocalypse I can think of. So,
oh my God, cut that question.
Well, let's transition over to our guest, Adam. So again, thank you for joining us. We'd like to have our audience learn a little about what you do while you're here. I mean, when
you're not beaten up on tortoises.
Yeah, really.
So Adam, I got to know you about almost 2 years ago when I submitted my film Higher Methods to the Macabre Faire Film Festival, and thrilled to find out that I was going to be able to travel with my movie Higher Methods to Nashville to represent it. And so I'm very thankful about that opportunity. But tell me a little bit about what you do. I know the film festival is just one of the things that you do, but share with us a little bit about your background, please.
Sure. Well, I'm originally from New York. I've lived in a lot of places, but I guess over the last two decades predominantly, I found my way from advertising into entertainment. And that started with haunted attractions. Then it was, when I say that, it TwitchTwitch Productions. It was at the time my wife and I creating these things. So it started with haunted attractions, and then it became theater and radio programs and a band of characters and so on. And eventually, all of us kind of split off on our own in some ways as artists and performers, some of them going very strong to this day, have venues and so on that they own or they work with and such, or performing. I think one of them is performing around the world as a singer. But anyway, long story short, for me is I kind of found my way into acting, which is a real passion for me. I just really love bringing characters to life. I've carried the weight of the lead role many times and I relish it, but I also like really bringing quirky, weird characters to life. That's a lot of fun for me, playing something that's out of the norm. And one of the things that has happened to me over the years is I kind of always get cast as the bad guy, and I can't figure out why, because I'm dying to play the hero. But I guess it's because on the voice side of things, I do a lot of voice work, and I tend to be able to do the deep, raspy stuff and the movie voice and all of that. And so I can really bring the killer and that, I guess, and people hear that. In fact, right now, I'm playing the killer in a film called Unseen, which just finished filming, and I am not seen in the movie. This is unique. The killer is not seen. You only hear my voice. Oh, cool. You see hands and so on. Cool. So this is an interesting thing because I was cast for this due to my voice acting. Cool. And then through that, my son and I, as TwitchTwitch Productions, I always seem to try to find ways. He's very talented, but whenever there's a project and I see holes in some way, shape, or form where TwitchTwitch beyond me can get involved, I offer us as in some way, shape, or form as a way to enhance the project. And in this instance, it was helping with some things on the producing side. Both Addison and I got involved with, and that's always good. It's a lot of fun. I like doing a little bit more than just the acting if I can. I really enjoy being, part of the entire project. But at the same time, I'm there to do what I'm there to do. It doesn't have to be, it's not an all or nothing type of thing for me. So the Macabre Faire Film Festival, so that goes back to TwitchTwitch Productions. So TwitchTwitch Productions was started as a little sort of company with my wife and I and a few friends, and it grew into a number of events, bizarre flea markets and haunt fairs and offbeat shows, dinner theater, haunted houses and attractions. You name it, we were doing all these crazy things on county properties, building haunted trails and 5,000 square foot tent attractions. It was a really amazing time in our lives. And it's funny how like that, it began to lead to ultimately film. And I remember my wife and I talking one day as we were both beginning this new journey with film festivals. And, we said, we're going to bring Hollywood to our doorstep. Let's see what we can do with that. And so it's funny because I remember our very first Macabre Faire Film Festival, we had Doug Jones as a guest. And
cool.
Most don't know who he is. I'm sure everybody does. But Dougie's an amazing guy. And he really enjoyed who we were. And I remember it was about 10 o'clock at night, and it was like the party atmosphere at that point. And a bunch of us, back in those days, you couldn't stop us from getting out of characters the moment that we didn't have to be ourselves. So immediately we'd be getting into our characters. And for us, it was full characters. I mean, we really it was beyond just some mask and makeup. These were full-blown characters that had backstories. And when you interacted with them, just like some of those that I still carry with me to this day as TwitchTwitch Productions at my events, you really don't know who this person is. Is this a real thing or not? I mean, some of us go so deep in, at least I did, in the way we did our makeup and such, that this was really like movie quality coming at you and talking to you in a live, off-the-cuff way, and always had an answer and always stayed in character. And this is just the way that we did things. And I remember doing that with Doug. And he didn't know who I was. And it was the next day that I revealed. He was shocked. But anyway, he said, I really loved your event. He said, I love what you and Elsie have done. He said, I've never go and party afterward, after signing or whatever. So I just go back and I finish what I got to do. And this is years ago. I don't know what he does now, but this was years ago, and at least a decade. And so I said, what do you mean? He says, no, I don't want to get involved. He said, but there was something about all of you. He said there was this sort of energy that really matched my energy, and I felt comfortable. And it's really interesting because that energy is what built the Macabre family. And the Macabre family became the Macabre Faire Film Festival, seeds. And the film festival ultimately got to the point, I think we're about 10 to 12 deep already, because we splintered it off and brought it as a media component to other festivals and so on, or conventions over the years. Just a lot of different ways to, expose indie films and filmmakers. And ultimately our principal goal and our mantra, my wife and I from the beginning, and kind of drilled it into Addison too as he got older, was like, this isn't about us, the film festival. It's where the films and the filmmakers are the stars. And as my wife, she passed in 2020. I remember one of the things that she enjoyed was this is an area where the two of us sort of had differences of opinion, and she enjoyed trying to bring in the big names and so on. And I would tell her, what, I don't think I want to do that anymore. I said, here we are talking about the films, and this is about an indie festival, and that means the indie films, and the indie filmmakers are the stars. Why should we bring in anyone that in some way overarcs or is over them to the public eye? So when my son and I revived the festival back in 2021, we brought it to Nashville. And that's what we did. And that's what you experienced. It was I wanted to put it in a theater, no longer in like a hotel, where we used to do it in hotels, and we'd take over all of the conference rooms and so on. And we would create these like black box theaters. It was really an amazing
I think
time.
Having a festival in actual theater is so important.
It was the game changer.
That are done in like conference rooms of a hotel, and it's not the same thing.
No, it's not. And that's the commitment that we have as TwitchTwitch Productions. It's like, I want to be true to the core of what this festival is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be for anyone other than those people who are submitting these films. Yeah. If the public wants to come in and watch them, great. But I'm trying to build an incredible networking, professional, fun atmosphere, a place where when they come, they say, my God, this was the experience that I've been waiting for. I actually was treated like I'm somebody. Yeah, you know what? You spent a lot of time, effort, and money, a huge chunk of your life, blood, sweat, and tears. I know because I've done this, and you should be rewarded. If you make it in there to these festivals, you should be rewarded. That's a lot of work, and, borrowing and stealing from others to get these things done, these passion projects. I mean, obviously if everything's above board, why shouldn't you be rewarded for the efforts and feel as though your efforts are really worth something? Not just, hey, they took my film to show it as content at their festival. Yeah. So, and honestly, as the guy putting it together, it's a lot of fun providing that experience. It's very interesting. I grew up and I was a very shy person. And when I got pushed into acting, because my wife pushed me into it, it had to be under a mask and makeup for me to feel comfortable. It took a while. I had caught the bug because people loved what I was doing, but I was comfortable because they didn't know who was under there. And it was eventually that I felt comfortable enough to remove that and show who I was, because at that point I realized that they're not there to look at me. They're there to look at who I'm supposed to be. So, it's just been an interesting ride through getting to meet folks like yourself, Nathan, is another reason why I love doing the festival. You know, I don't, as I mentioned before we started, I don't watch a lot of films too much anymore or things like that. You know, I'm really very busy right now at this point in my life with acting projects when I can grab them, or a producing project. We're doing our own short right now. Actually, we've been rounding up cicadas. The big joke is that they're cast members because we're doing a bug movie. So TwitchTwitch film that we're working on. We got a short. It's kind of an all in-house project, but so we're having some fun with that. And then the other side of my life is our dispensary business that we have, Green Treez Company, Treez with a Z company here in the Nashville area. So this is something that my son and I got involved in back in 2021 with a little store. The idea for me was this would be the place where I could make up a lot of years. My son is a product of divorce from the time he was 3 months old. So I thought this was going to be the chance for us to kind of be together all the time. He was really into film. He was going to film school and all of that. He was very adept at it. We had done some projects and such together. He'd been tagging along through the years of TwitchTwitch from when he was a little kid all the way up. So he really liked it. We came here so he could go to film school. And I said, you know what, we'll open this little store and we'll basically really blow up TwitchTwitch. Who cares what we make at the store? It's just like, as long as we can make enough money to pay our bills. And it really, for me, as a father who didn't have him full time, this was huge for me. So, so what ends up happening is the business gets to the point where it's important enough that, we're on the board of directors of the Tennessee Growers Coalition. We're actively involved in cannabis and trying to get things passed here and lobbying and so on. And it just, this part of our life has grown to the point where that little store has now been there 3 years. We have another store now here in the Nashville area. We ship all over the country. We deliver. We do pickups. I mean, it's pretty much, it is the major part of what we do. And so I was mentioning to Nathan before when he was inviting me on, due to that, this year, the Macabre Faire Film Festival, I had to put it on hiatus, which we had to do in the past. We did that once before for a few years due to losing my wife and basically her health declining, and she couldn't do it much longer. So we decided to stop it for a few years. So I said to Ad, I said, you know what, there's too many things in flux right now in Tennessee with cannabis, and we need to spend the next year or so really focusing on Green Treez and TwitchTwitch, what TwitchTwitch can do besides just, sort of getting involved in the background with other folks' movies, which we love to do. But at the end of the day, I like to do it for our own films and some of our own content as well. So.
Well, Adam, thank you for sharing all this great story about everything that you do.
Thank you.
It's fascinating. I actually didn't know a lot of this, so I only knew you from the film festival. Before we wrap it up tonight, I'd like you to plug where people can find you. We'll also put everything in the show notes because it sounds like you have a lot of places to be found for sure. But I think the audience right now, where can people find you online?
Probably the easiest way to find me is on Facebook, Adam Ginsberg. I think I have a website out there, official adamginsberg.com. I know I'm on IMDb. My voice is on SoundCloud as the Adman40. Definitely go to Green Treez with a Z company.com. That's my son and I. That's our company.
Nice. I will be visiting that.
Product. And something that you guys might really like is see you mentioned the nerdy side of things, right? So, I am a film guy and I'm into horror and all that side of it too. And I've got with Green Treez a unique thing because I blended the two worlds together. So our whole thing is comfort and cannabis, right? At this moment, I have over 800 items on sale on our eBay store. This is pop culture memorabilia. I've got 7,000 comic books in my Hendersonville store, bagged and boarded.
Wow.
I've got probably 3 dozen graded books, signed, some of them. I've got 9.8s with, artist signatures and drawings on them. I go deep. I just brought in The Gift from Pepper, signed by Robert Downey, Tony Stark's heart. You guys remember the heart? First heart?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
I've got that in the display case, just came in, signed by Robert Downey Jr. I've got the Shawarma Funko signed by him. We've got an Indiana Jones signed by Harrison Ford. And I've got 2 Jokers signed by Jack Nicholson.
Wow.
That's awesome.
This is all stuff that's hitting our eBay. And you can find this stuff in our stores. So you come into our stores And yeah, there's that whole THC and CBD side of it. But if you really look around, there's a lot of art. And if you know who I am, you begin to understand why there's superheroes and there's things like this on the wall and so on, because it kind of floods the atmosphere. I want to bring people to a mental place when they walk in the door that feels very comfortable.
I love that.
And honestly, pop culture and memorabilia just does that, you know? So we got a lot of vintage stuff, cool things, and that's what Green Trees Company is all about.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome. Yeah. What a combo. All right. Well, I think it's time that we transition to the film that we're reviewing tonight, which I'm really excited. And I'm really glad that you're part of this, Adam, because I know you're a fan of this movie. We watched this past week, Road Warrior, or the rest of the world knows this as Mad Max 2, which
A less cool title.
I didn't I mean, that's up for debate. Maybe, I don't know, but I get the Road Warrior, why it was named that, because I think that in the United States, where Mad Max did not get much of a release, that if you didn't know what Mad Max was, you would have no idea what's Road Warrior. You would have no idea it's a sequel. So it makes sense. It makes perfect
Little
sense.
would you know that you didn't have to see the first one at all. And then many people didn't.
When I was a 15-year-old in 1996 and like Kurt Russell appeared in a movie trailer, he was like, Snake Plissken is back. And I was like, who the hell is that?
Snake Plissken is so cool. I think
now
about
I know who he is, but yeah.
I think about the escape movies a lot when watching Mad Max.
Yes.
So
I love them, yeah.
Well, I have a little plot synopsis for this movie somewhere here on all my screens that are open. Here it is. After avenging the death of his wife and young son at the hands of a vicious gang leader, Max, played by Mel Gibson, drives the post-apocalyptic highways of the Australian outback, fending off attacks from nomadic tribes that prey on outsiders. Falling into an encampment led by the relatively peaceful Papagallo, played by Mike Preston, Max at first schemes to steal their oil, but soon becomes the group's reluctant defender against the hulking Humongous and his ruthless marauders.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's pretty
much
it.
the movie.
So there you go. And I do have a version for the kiddos out there.
Do you have a 5-year-old version? I kind of want to hear it.
I do have the 5-year-old plot synopsis.
Okay, explain Mad Max 2 to me like I'm 5.
Welcome to a world where the rubber meets the road in the most unusual way. A world where vehicles have minds of their own, where the highways are a comedic chaos of wacky wheels and characters straight out of a child's wildest dreams. Now, imagine a hero, a super-duper cop, a legendary figure known as Max, the Road Warrior. Max isn't your average highway hero. He's the coolest cat on wheels, with a trusty car that could make even the most seasoned petrolhead turn green with envy. But what's a hero without his loyal sidekick? Meet Doggo, the canine companion with a bark more powerful than any car horn. One day, our dynamic duo cruises into a town that's more cheddar than brick, a place where the locals are facing a crisis of cataclysmic proportions. Their prized cheese supply, the lifeline of their annual cheese festival, has been swiped by the notorious cheese bandits. The mastermind behind this dairy disaster, a villain known only as the Cheese Kingpin. Without missing a beat, Max, with a glint in his eye and a rev of his engine, accepts the challenge. Along the way, he gathers a motley crew of allies. There's Benny, a talking banana with a peel full of puns, and Cluck Cluck, a roller skating chicken with a knack for pecking out the perfect plan. Together, this band of unlikely heroes embarks on an adventure that's as cheesy as they come. They dodge giant cheese wheels, outwit traps that'd make a mousetrap look like child's play, and even pull off a daring cheese heist to rival the original theft. With Max's unmatched driving skills and his friend's unique talents, they're an unstoppable force on the highway to hilarity. In the end, it all comes down to one epic showdown. Max and his crew confront the Cheese Kingpin, using the power of friendship, and yes, a whole lot of cheese, to convince him to return the stolen goods. The Kingpin, moved by their camaraderie, or maybe it's the cheese, agrees to join in the town's cheese festival fun. And so, as the sun sets and the town celebrates with a feast of fromage, Max and his pals hit the open road once more. Another day, another adventure for our road warrior. But as they drive off into the horizon, something catches Max's eye. A strange shadow, a hint of danger. Could it be the Vroom Vroom Vandals, those notorious road rogues? Well, that's a tale for another day. After all, when you're Max, the road warrior, every day is a Gouda day for excitement.
Stop.
I don't know. I think that was more fitting for Beyond Thunderdome, if you ask me. But
Yeah.
Again,
Do you guys ever see the Nathan Lane film Mousetrap? That could have been it.
yes, that movie is hilarious.
it's
I think it is. I can't remember it well, but it was good.
I mean, I was 7, but I liked it.
another case to hire writers and not rely on AI. Yeah.
I do really love categorizing the biker gang as Vroom Vroom Vandals. That is one of my favorites.
All right.
Because Mad Max 2 is so good.
I'll just play. This is like 30 seconds of the trailer because it's not so exciting to listen to, but here it is.
In the future, cities will become deserts. Roads will become battlefields. And the hope of mankind will appear as a stranger.
The opening scene.
Yeah. You get the idea.
Thanks, Nate.
I want to blow out your eardrums for a moment.
Thanks.
Okay, let's get to our thoughts. Let's get to our thoughts on this. No, we're not. Sam, you're going to start us off with a few facts. Please.
Yes, indeedy. So a couple facts on Mad Max 2, otherwise known as The Road Warrior, a title I actually infinitely like better. So this is a 1981 Australian post-apocalyptic dystopian action film directed by George Miller. It actually came out, I believe I have this right, in Australia, December of 81, but I think it came out in the US in the summer of 82. I could be wrong about that, but there was a delay, but spring, something like that. There was a time lapse. This is once again directed by George Miller, who co-wrote it with Terry Hayes and Brian Hannett. Obviously, it's the second installment in the Mad Max franchise. Speaking for the look of the film, this was shot around a place called Broken Hill, a small mining town in the outback of New South Wales. And I personally, there's, desert is desert, but there's so many different types of desert. I feel that this Mad Max film in particular has a look to it that I just love, and the landscape is such a character in this film, much more so than in part one. And so the cinematography this time around, new cinematographer Dean Semler came in to DP this film, and he actually also did Dances with Wolves, Apocalypto, Dead Calm, Warrior. So he's done some large scale films, and this movie to me has a richer look. Once again, the music is by Brian May, who I personally feel outdoes his soundtrack in the first film times 10. There is an epicness.
Not the Brian May from Queen, though.
Not the Brian May from Queen, different Brian May. Yeah. But the music in this movie, The Road Warrior, just nails it this time, or it was a bit wonky in the first film. This time I feel he just knocks it out of the park. The production company was once again Kennedy Miller Entertainment. And one thing I was when I was reading about it that really interested me, actually, following the release of Mad Max, George Miller actually received a number of offers from Hollywood, including one to direct First Blood, the first Rambo film, which I think would have been really interesting with him at the helm.
Yeah.
Because just short side fact.
Do we know who directed that First Blood? I forget who directed First Blood.
I don't remember the name off the top of my head. I will say very briefly that the cut of First Blood was 3 hours full of a lot of like pontificating cheesy action lines. And it was Sylvester Stallone who famously went in and edited the movie himself down to 90 minutes and turned First Blood into the much better film than what it was originally going to be. He was so horrified by it. He went back to the editing room, and First Blood is actually great because of the fact that he cut a ton of it.
So the director, Ted Kotcheff, is the guy who did First Blood, who also was one of the Kickstarters of Australian New Wave, of course, who came into Australia to film Wake and Fright, which is
also the director of Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah.
No way.
Just bangers on bangers, this guy. But yeah, interesting that a New Wave Australian guy sort of went over and did that. I think George Miller, though, he got all these accolades and he started to get a little bit of money. And every time I watch a Mad Max movie, I think George Miller was like, yeah, but how could I make Mad Max better? Like every time George Miller's like, if I could make Mad Max again, how would I do it with this amount of money?
Exactly. No, I feel like he's been like doing that over the years. Like it's at the core of his soul or something. And
it's just the story he's got to tell.
Yeah. It's just like in him. And actually, speaking of that, I was reading this from Wikipedia. I was surprised by this. He said, and this is a quote, George Miller said, making Mad Max, the first one, was a very unhappy experience for me. I had absolutely no control over the final product, but there was strong pressure to make a sequel, and I felt we could do a better job with a second movie. And so it says, inspired by Joseph Campbell's The Hero with a Thousand Faces and the work of Carl Jung, as well as the films of Akira Kurosawa, Miller recruited Hayes to join the production as a scriptwriter. Brian Hannon also came on board as a co-writer, first assistant director, and second unit director. So I feel like this motivation behind the second film sort of shaped it into the experience. Was great performances in this movie from Bruce Spence as the gyro captain. I really like Mike Preston as Papagallo. I just feel like he's and I'll say Max Phillips as the toady, Vernon Wells as Wes. Humongous's hilariously over-the-top evil lieutenant with his wacky mohawk. And I will say briefly that although this movie obviously does not deeply analyze characters, I find the characterizations in this movie are really strong. Everyone kind of makes a sort of memorable impression. So that's the cast, cinematography. Yeah. And lastly, I'll say that not quite sure about this budget information, but this had a much
cinematography. Yeah. Did you mention Dean Semler, right?
Yes, definitely mentioned Dean Semler, Dances with Wolves, and
City Slickers. He did Waterworld too.
Yes,
and worked a lot with. Also worked again with Mel Gibson on Apocalypto. He did 2012. I think it was the last notable thing he did was 2012. But
this Mad Max.
Yeah, anyways,
he did. No, he was like
Young Guns 1 and 2. He did.
Oh, no way. I did not know that. Wow.
Anyway.
The budget of this movie, I'll lastly say, was significantly larger than Mad Max. The budget was $4.5 million US. Yeah. Box office, $36 million. I don't know if that's total in the US. Those numbers are kind of uncertain to me, but like it did well. I think that Mad Max, the ratio of production to profit was huge, but this was still like damn successful. So a successful sequel, received accolades in Australia, positive reviews all around for the most part, I think.
Yep. I will just sprinkle in. I was looking at the box office when this was released. This debuted at number 4 at the box office when it came out on May 21st, 1982. When it came out, number 1 at the box office was Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, wow. I can see that. Yeah, that was so good.
And number 2 was Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid when it was released. Number 3 was Porky's. This was, of course, number 4. Number 5 was The Sword and the Sorcerer. This sounds like something up your alley, Sam. I have not seen that. Yeah, it's a medieval
Sword and the Sorcerer.
It's a live action medieval fantasy film. I don't know anything about it. At number 6 on this weekend was Chariots of Fire.
Interesting.
In its 35th week of release.
I was like, wow, all the way down to number 6, huh?
It's a good thing that The Road Warrior did not open in mid-June, because a little movie called E.T. came out then, and that would have
never feels like different audiences. I don't know.
I don't know that one. Number 7 was Fighting Back, also debuted this weekend. It's a vigilante action thriller with Tom Skerritt. Number 8 was On Golden Pond in its 25th week of release.
Wow.
Yeah. And number 9 was Victor Victoria, and it's
that's a good movie.
10th week of release. And number 10 was Wrong is Right. I don't know what that is, but it's crazy seeing all these movies. By the way, Porky's was also in its 10th week of release. All these movies just stayed in the theaters for like months on end. It's,
no
different
more.
Different time.
1992 was a good year for movies.
Yeah,
it was. Oh my God. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. I didn't even know The Sword and Sorcerer existed. I'm looking it up right now. I can't believe I hadn't heard of it.
This is when we do our Sword and Sandals.
Absolutely.
We'll put it on our list. I didn't know anything about it. Okay. So I think we can start getting to our our thoughts on this. But Sam, you're going to go first. Let's give a brief thoughts on this, and you can begin.
So I will say briefly, I love The Road Warrior. I would say at present, it is my favorite Mad Max movie to date of the 4 movies in existence at the moment. Furiosa has not yet come out at the time of this recording, so very much looking forward to that. I feel that this Mad Max film is what Goldfinger was to the James Bond franchise. It establishes a formula which recurs later, where Mad Max is in a roguish, isolated situation in the desert, and he gets sucked into a plot and involved with some characters, and there's action and a resolution, and ultimately he leaves them behind at the end of the film. I just think this is a massive improvement over the 1979 Mad Max film, in that it's a lot more elemental. It's much more apocalyptic, kind of fantasy driven, and the simplicity and brutal elegance of the plot, that they're just trying to survive and they want the gasoline, the bare bones nature of this story and the feeling of the production just add to it. And I just, as I was saying before, I find the characterizations really strong in this film, where the people are memorable. That encampment where they're, hiding the gasoline, and they've got that bus as the barrier that like blockades the door. I like everyone in there. I just find them interesting. I like the world of it. I find the villains scary and vicious. And I actually think that this movie and this story tests Mad Max's character in a good way, because he has an opportunity to join these people. And because he's so reluctant, it actually goes into his character in a little bit, as there is room for in a movie that is like focused on high octane action. But it just fires on all thrusters. And lastly, I'll say that chase at the end of the film with all the vehicles on the road and the gyrocopter. There's these wide shots where it's like all the cars, the gyrocopters flying around. It's all real. It's all there. And I just am blown away by it. And I will just say that I love the framing that it's told from, that you find out that the voiceover is the feral kid who grows up to be a warrior.
What a good reveal.
It's such a good reveal. And it just,
he learned how to talk.
And it just, the movie, this was my introduction to Mad Max. This is the first Mad Max film I saw, and it just left a strong impression on me. And there's an epicness to it, and this kind of undercurrent, where when the movie ends and the credit rolls and that quiet kind of undercurrent of epic, like kind of a forlorn music plays, you just sit there and you're like, wow, that was awesome. And that's Road Warrior in a nutshell for me.
Great. If you were to give it a rating of 1 to 5, Sam, what would you give it?
Oh man, I would give it, that's tough. I'd give it 4.5. And I mean, I would almost give it 5. 4.5 is just because there is, even with the cleanup and the transfer, there are some audio issues with dialogue where like I just
pick.
Yeah. But I saw the cleanest, like the 4K transfer, and it just looks amazing. I'd give it 4.5. You know what? Screw it. I'll give it 5. I give it 5.
There he is.
Yeah. I can't do it. Yeah.
It's all vibes over here, baby.
Yeah. Right. It's 5 stars of vibes. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I love this film. I grew up with this film. It's seminal to both shaping my taste in cinema, but more important to how action films would be made forever afterwards. George Miller came so far as a director between Mad Max and this second film. His vision for this movie, it's just laser focused. It's an incredibly lean movie also. It's a simple plot, which I think is exactly what makes this movie also appealing. Whereas last week, when we discussed Mad Max, the first one, I kept reiterating how confused I was at times about the characters' motivations. And in this film, it couldn't be more clear with what every character wants. And I think Miller once again...
Yeah, the cheese.
Yeah. I think Miller once again is paying tribute to a classic genre here. Mad Max, the first one, I think is cleverly disguised as a revisionist Western, whereas Road Warrior, for me, is 100% an homage to classic samurai films. Max is the samurai, the Ronin, lone warrior. He's got his own code of honor. It's a plot lifted right from those films. My only criticism of this film is that there aren't more cool cars and badass characters doing crazy shit. So I love this film. I'm giving it 4.5. I think there's still little things maybe I could enjoy more in this. Like
I've got to go back to 4.5. I have to.
More cool cars.
I'm going to go with 4.5 too. 4.5 because that was my original thing, and I was giving 5 stars because I felt guilt, but I should hold pressure. 4.5. Nathan, I am on your 4.5 page. I apologize for like backing up my train. 4.5. 4.5.
Jesus Christ, Sam, pick a lane. All right,
that's fine. Adam, tell us about Mad Max.
How old were you guys when you first saw it? I'm curious.
I was 14 in the summer of 1995, and I saw Waterworld in the theater, and I read a review about it, and the reviewer was saying, this is nowhere near as good as The Road Warrior. The desert of the Road Warrior is far scarier than the ocean of Waterworld. And I said, Road Warrior, what's that? I had no idea. And then I went and I rented it on VHS. I was like, oh, this is what it is.
I probably saw Road Warrior on cable, like HBO, probably when we got it in like the mid 80s. Well, no, it has to be before I saw Thunderdome, because I saw this before Thunderdome. So it was probably, 83, 84 when we first got like HBO or something around that time. Yeah.
So did either of you see it in a theater?
I saw it in the theater. There's the Aero Theater in Santa Monica. I live in LA, and they have screenings. I did see it in the theater, a double feature night in 2000. I can't remember the exact, but I saw it back to back with Road Warrior and Beyond Thunderdome in the same night. Really good prints, actually. So I had the theater experience.
Cool. So I saw it in the theater the first time. My father took me. He had just started to take me to midnight movies and things like this. And I think I was maybe 14 or 15. And this came at a time that I was just starting to think about driving. I'm a bit older than you guys, so there was no computers and all of that. There were no cell phones, and going to the movies was kind of a cool thing, or sneaking into the movies with your friends was a cool thing. And working on stuff with your hands was a cool thing. And my buddies and I were getting into cars at that time in my life, very early on. For me, it was just looking at magazines and whatnot. But I recall my dad taking me to see this. And from the moment the words hit the screen with that, at the beginning, I don't know, I'd never seen anything like that. And, they put you right into it, with the sound of the engine buzzing, and you're coming down like into it. And it just, I recall at that point in my life, going to the movies was a thing. There were no computers, or like I said, it just was very impactful. Hitting a young guy who's just getting into cars and stuff and those type of things. It was mind blowing. I'll be honest with you. It altered my way of thinking in terms of cars for, a long time. To this point in my life, I still like to have some sort of a fast car or something or whatever. Now I've switched over to motorcycles. And I'm getting into faster and faster bikes, and here I am in my 50s, and it all goes back to that movie, that car, that desire to see the first one because I saw the second, that disappointment of the third one. And so just, I'm being honest. I'm going to tell you, it's almost shameful, but I'm talking about being in the military with nothing to do but watch VHS movies, and watching The Road Warrior enough times that you couldn't even watch it anymore. It was like, it was just, worn out. Just love the movie that much. The guys and I sit around, talk the movie as it's happening. We like, just sitting around when you're off or whatever. It's one of those type of films for all of us at that point in time.
Yeah.
So, for me, we all know the movie. We all know the characters. We all have our takeaways from it. But that was probably the biggest impact for me. I kind of always enjoy films where it's that lone type of character. Maybe it stems from that, because years later, I find myself enjoying those type of films. Maybe the teenage boy is somewhere in there that, still wants to be the anti-hero or the superhero. And that kind of movie, when you go back and you see it, or those memories come back, it stirs that sort of little adrenaline rush inside of you. But it's definitely one of those type of films. You know, if we look at it and we compare it to the work today, does it stand up? You know, in terms of technology and such, you know, yeah, I mean, it can stand up. You said the 4K, you know, was pretty nice. It can stand up, and if you put it where it is, because to compare to like the wild stuff that George is doing now, it really, you know, in terms of tech, and no, it doesn't. The budget's nowhere near it. Honestly, I'm kind of a purist when it comes to the character. Folks may not like it, but I watched Fury Road. I thought it was a great movie. It really wasn't for me. I was kind of disappointed. It wasn't more Max based. Those were the scenes that I enjoyed. You know, I'm sorry. That's what I'm there for. That's what I check in for. The film that's coming, I'll go see it. I know it's going to be great. I'm really not thrilled. I'm just not. It's just like, okay, are you ever going to go back and do what we've been waiting for? Because I feel like I'm not alone in this camp. I'm an older guy, and I have the video game on the PlayStation. It's one of the best video games. If you just want to, after you beat the game, you just want to drive around, just keep doing stuff, you can. It's a better experience than Thunderdome.
Well, you're talking. Wait a minute. Is this the Mad Max like PS4 video game?
It's a great game.
That game is incredible. Yeah, I played that. You can. It's just huge, and I love that game.
Yeah, it's a great game. It's never really finished in a sense. But you know, I had seen an article recently where they said, you know, you will see Mad Max. It's actually going to be spoiler, but it's going to be played by I think the guy who was Tom Hardy's stunt double in Fury Road. But it's going to be like if you didn't know he was going to be there, you might miss him. Type of a cameo for the character.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, but there was another article that I read that said that they're maybe exploring doing some more of where he was and what he was doing in terms of his life again in between these things. And you know what? I'd be down with that. I'd love to see what happened between the first and the second. You know, how do we get from the original car to suddenly it's all beat up and he's got this dog? And he's all by himself.
There's a lot that happens in between those. Yeah.
Still got a leg brace though.
Well, there's the whole apocalypse that we don't see. There's everything because we see Mad Max. It hasn't happened yet. We're starting to see society crumble, and Road Warrior. We're in it.
Yeah.
So,
This is why I really don't like watching them as a linear story. I really just like to watch them as retellings of the legend of the man.
Yeah.
It's interesting because as the years have passed and being an older guy and watching the news and more and having watched this movie backwards and forwards and more you see things going on in the world as you get older and you begin to recollect the beginning of that movie. And you start to wonder.
I hear you.
Pretty wild.
I think I read somewhere that intro was added on after. For other audiences.
God, I love that intro. I
think I heard somewhere that it wasn't quite the original. I think it was added on.
Is that possible? Because you know, when I haven't seen the Road Warrior in many years, and I forgot all about the intro. But you obviously, Adam, you've seen this many times. Is that intro every time you've seen it? Was that always in there in the original theatrical run?
Well, to my recollection, I always see it, you know, the black and white footage and stuff. Yeah. But you know what's really funny is the first time I saw the version with the original voice actor, it threw me. The original voice acting is different than the version we get over here.
The first movie?
I'm talking about the second one, the one we're talking about, the Road Warrior. There's two versions of the voiceover.
Well, I knew about that.
Oh, interesting.
In the opening. Oh, yeah. And so and some of the words are slightly different. So if you ever hear the other version, it kind of throws you a little bit. Whichever one you're used to, when you hear the other one, you're kind of like, whoa, what's going on?
Interesting.
I heard it was added for international audiences. So I wonder if it's depending on which international audience you are, because we weren't like super aware of the original.
Right. So, but you know, ultimately, very enjoyable film. Man, I wish we could have gotten more of the Interceptor. You know, it seems like it's such a tease in every film. It's just like, come on, you know, that's what everybody's dying for. You know, it's a character in itself, and that's another unique thing about the film. You know, the car itself becomes a character and has a lot of lore behind it. Has tons of videos online about it. There's companies out there that specialize in how to replicate it. It's amazing. But I'll get to my grade. So, you know, being someone who has graded films and such, this is very difficult because this film I absolutely love. But I would be realistic, and I would probably give it a 4 out of 5, as much as I'd want to give it a 10 out of 5. I love the story. I love the acting. It's a little goofy at times, and I love that about it because it's not over the top. But ultimately, we're in where we are today. I think at its time, it was a 5 out of 5. I think where we are today, I could give it a 4.
Interesting.
I hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw this movie. This was the second. I saw the Thunderdome first, or Beyond Thunderdome first. And then this movie I didn't see until college.
That's the way my dad says it, the Thunderdome.
I know. I don't know why I add the in there. I do it every time. I went to go see the baseball. I don't know. I was in college. I had a little TV with a built-in VHS player that I kept in my closet.
That's the way George Miller intended you to watch it.
That's right. And I would go to Savers and just get whatever cheap movies were there. And that's how I saw a bunch of classic movies that I had otherwise never really heard of or cared about up until then. I didn't grow up really hungry for action movies. I'll be honest with you. I was more into the high fantasy drama kind of stuff. But it's really interesting because I think when all of you have sort of talked about how the Mad Max series has inspired the next generation of action films, and all action films post Mad Max have a certain look and a certain structure and a way of telling stories. And I think when you grow up in that, it can be hard to go back to the original influencer and enjoy it. But it's totally the opposite for Mad Max. When I return to the Max series, I'm like, oh, this is the root of it. This is everything else is a pale imitation. It's not that everything else has done it so much better. Everything has tried and failed to capture whatever lightning in a bottle this movie is. I think it's an incredible film for how lean and streamlined it is. There's so much room for breath in it. We get tonal shifts. We get comedy with the mechanics. We have a character who's kind of having fun in the apocalypse in the Gyro Captain. We have all these different tonal experiences coming together. We get that pivotal moment for Max where he has to make a decision. So even though the plot is leaner, it feels more fleshed out, and it's really revved up the stuff that you're waiting for. The costumes are, oh my God, they're insane. They're, they suck nitro, as they would say in the first movie. The action in here is going for it all the way. I mean, this movie just, I think, really perfected it. And you can see why everyone else has tried and failed to do it since then, including George Miller sometimes. But I don't think it's a perfect movie. There's stuff that I just can't get away from as a modern viewer watching it. I don't like the kid. I'm sorry. I think that it's down a half a star for the kid. That kid is so annoying.
He just grunts his way through the movie.
Oh God. It's like, dude, just not into the kid. I think he's awful. I've learned that I'm really grossed out by bald heads with just a few long strands of hair. Wow. Humongous can really, I think that's the point though. I do like his pulsating prosthetic. But yeah, I think this movie is, when you've seen everything that it's inspired and then you watch Road Warrior, it just feels like a return to form. It feels like what everything's trying to do. I think it's so special. It feels timeless, even though it really could feel stunted in an era. So I think it's great. I think it's a great movie. I think it's classic storytelling. I'm into it. I give it a 4 out of 5.
I hear you. And I love the relationship between Mad Max and the Gyro Captain. Their dynamic is amusing and wonderful. Yeah.
It's funny you say it's what others are trying to do, because I remember after that there was a slew of all these really bad post-apocalyptic movies that involved cars and whatever, and they were just terrible. That was late night, the worst of the late night movies you could possibly imagine.
Totally.
Yeah,
and
it's like when Star Wars came out in 1977 and all of a sudden there's a bunch of spaceship flying. They're like, oh, the spaceships and flying and people like that. We can do that too. And it's like, no, there was more to it than that. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But my niece and nephew grew up watching big budget sci-fi. And then I tried to show them Men in Black and they were like, this is not what we're into, because it's hard to go backwards. It can be, but I just think this movie nails
Meanwhile,
it.
when that came out, that was mind blowing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean. Be about the laser focus of the movie. It's so lean and so focused that everything just shines, where if you see a movie like Waterworld, it like meanders and it tries, and then it kind of
which can be nice, but I like that this is, it's a drag race of a movie.
It's just like, yeah, exactly.
I think the last chase is 18 minutes or so. I mean, I don't think anything, right?
I think
like
Fury Road is
minutes.
George Miller going, how can I make The Last Chase a whole movie?
Yeah.
Oh, exactly.
I think it's right up there with with Bullet. I think The Last Chase is up there with Bullet with McQueen.
You know what
That's
I
a great
compare
movie.
that final chase with? I can't not think about the trench run in Star Wars. That's where I go to when it is that level of excitement for me when I see that. Especially, Sam, you alluded to it when you were talking, that flying over the cars.
Oh my God!
Beautiful.
You're trucking down. You see all the vehicles, following the tanker. I mean, that shot is that goosebump scene where you see like the X-wings go down into the trench. Is that same moment that gives me that sensation, that whole sequence. So I'm sure that George Miller, was looking at Star Wars when he did this whole.
I think he was looking at other Australian genre flicks too. I mean, I don't think these movies came out of nowhere, but they really honed the craft.
But it's also story-wise too, because our heroes are taken out one at a time. You got the warrior woman that gets taken out. The mechanic is taken out. Papagallo, I think that's his name. He gets taken out. It's just like the same story beats as the trench run as well, where all Luke's wingmen are kind of taken out. So
Nate, let's go over the story beats.
That's the thing. It's not just like the flash of, hey, action and vehicles. There's actually storytelling, good storytelling in the chase, where it's like, that's what makes
Star Wars is not original either. I mean, that's also from a lot of other things. But I'm just saying it felt very, very similar in like beat by beat, the way that George Lucas did that.
Is the mechanic the guy that got like his hands on fire and he's like, oh, I'm trying to put that. I love that guy. He's so funny, man.
The mechanics were my favorite joke in the movie is when the mechanics are like, this is going to take 24 hours. And then they're like, he's got 12. And they're like, all right.
It's like, okay.
We could have done it in 12.
I was wondering if any of the wingmen in Star Wars broke their legs in the final chase.
No.
The stunt person that did in.
That guy that flipped.
Yeah.
That was not supposed to happen. I watched.
They're lucky nobody died on these movies.
It's amazing. No one got.
It's
that guy got really hurt though. He really got. Yeah, he really break his at least one or two legs and went to the hospital. There, I got the high octane box set, and I know that documentary probably is available on YouTube as well. But I watched all the special features that came with it, and it showed that whole.
See the fall where they had people just landing in cardboard boxes, like safe,
crazy things.
Good. That gyrocopter, I just want to shout out. That's a real thing. That's a Benson ultralight. So if anyone ever wants to mess around with experimental aircraft, you can.
There is that really funny shot when the gyrocopter gets shot out of the sky, and it's a close up of Bruce Spence, like.
I don't know if B got to tell you, but B is a pilot. I don't know if you talked about this beforehand.
No, we didn't. Working on it.
And she's working on a gyro captain license.
Nice.
One day, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, back up here for a little bit. I want to talk about the Marauders because you know how we talked about the Acolytes. I think was the gang from the first one. Lord Humongous and Wes. I mean, we talked about the homoeroticism in that first
I was
movie.
just gonna say how gay.
We have amped up to 11 in this movie.
Yeah.
Here. The leather that
it's real Top Gun levels.
Or when the Humongous has like Wes on like a leash when he's misbehaved, and you're like, whoa. Okay.
It's beautiful what's going on here. Lord Humongous. I mean, we talked about the Judas Priest.
He do be big.
He is like Jason Voorhees and Rob Halford had a love child. It is amazing. I love it.
I love that there's literally like this weird music video in the middle of this movie when it's like nighttime and the Marauders they're angry and he's just like fire and they're like dancing around. They're like, we're the bad guys. It's nighttime and we're the bad guys.
but I will
kind of like the beach scene.
Lord Humongous as a main villain. I don't know. I'd like to get your takes on him. Do you like?
I think he's no. I think he's kind of a flat villain, but I think that he, he's a good poster boy for the rest of the gang, and I don't think the gang really gets fleshed out as much as the hero side. I don't mind it. It doesn't bother me like it would in other movies.
Yeah, I don't think he's like the toe cutter in Mad Max.
I was just gonna say, he's no Hugh Keays-Byrne.
Yeah, it was much more of a personality. Like he's more of like a kind of Vader type. Like he looks cool, not much of a character, but like B was saying, it doesn't bother me that much because the apparatus of the storytelling around him is so good that it would have been cool if he was a bit more of a character, but he doesn't drag it down for me.
You don't need more. What do they want? Guzzling. What do you have? Guzzling. Go.
Exactly. They are. I will say ultimately, I kind of prefer the Marauders in general to the villains in the first film, just because they're out in the desert and they're scarier.
Because they're more gay.
And they have more car. They have more terrifying. They have more terrifying vehicles. Yeah,
they do.
I would be afraid of them if the original gang came after me in the desert. I'd be like, okay, they've got motorcycles and clubs, whatever. But if this gang was chasing me in the desert, I'd be like, I am in fucking trouble. I'm scared.
So the Road Warrior introduces the polecat. I don't know if I connected that necessarily.
What's interesting is the gangs and their style. Mad Max could almost be a horror film.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that is much more of a realistic type of horror to the average person. That they're attacked by some motorcycle gang or a gang of people, then they find themselves in the desert attacked by guys in leather and whatever.
Totally agree.
It
was like a Wes Craven.
Yeah.
Yep.
Totally. I will say this
on your wavelength.
Watching this movie also makes me retroactively appreciate the first Mad Max movie even more in the performance from Toe Cutter. Because as I'm watching Lord Humongous, like you've already mentioned here, I don't think
Boy, have I got a double feature for you.
He serves the purpose for this. But Toe Cutter, he was like chaotic and Shakespearean in his evil. And watching and thinking about that, I now love what he was doing in that so much more, because I didn't find Lord Humongous really all that interesting. I think Wes, in some ways, is a more fun character.
I thought his little blonde boy reminded me of Rocky Horror a lot.
There is a shot when Humongous is trying to calm down Wes. He's like, you'll have your chance later, but he's holding him, but the shot's behind his head. And every time I see that shot, I just feel like George Miller is like, okay, we'll dub in the dialogue later. Just like hold his head close, hold the camera steady. We'll make up the words later. Because it's just a shot where it's like, you can't see him talking. It's like, yeah, we'll fix it later.
It's still my dog of war.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Anything about the plot that we want to talk about here? Because how about the interaction we talked about the gyro?
I would love to talk about the turning point with Papagallo.
Okay. Oh, where they confront where he's confronting.
Where Papagallo sort of gives Max an explanation and possibly an ultimatum and an offer to stay.
I love that scene.
It was really kind of a how would you put it here? But like go ahead, B.
Oh, yeah, no, I just thought that was a great moment and a little bit of a growth for Max's, you're just living off the bones of the old world. Do you think you're the one who suffered? We haven't given up. We're still human beings. And I thought that showed just painted Max in this really like stark and negative light. I think because he's our hero, we're just so automatically bought in to what he's doing and who he's fighting. And this moment really makes you step back and go, He did go mad. He's part of the destruction. He's not building anything. He's not ambitious towards anything. He's not trying to get back to any sense of good either. He's on pure survival mode.
He's in it for
better or worse. Exactly. Totally in it for himself and his dog, who's pretty great, which I do love the storytelling trope in movies, which is if you have a dog, you're the good guy.
Doggo.
Yeah. But I thought this was interesting that someone kind of confronted Max that way.
I thought that was great, and I really like Mike Preston's performance because he gives a humanity to it, and I like that group of people. I just think they're a good balance for Max because it's like they still have
each other.
They still have each other, and I really, really like. I think it helps the movie that they're a group of people in a very small compound. I think if Max had gone into a city that had more of a societal structure, that it would get too lofty. I just like how everything is so elemental. They're there. They've got their equipment. They've got they got a bus. They got some walls. They have flamethrowers, but they're barely clinging on, and they're protecting gasoline. It's just out there in nowhere
with weapons. I mean, they're protecting it, but they got flamethrowers. They got weapons. They seem to be.
They have a feral child.
Well, yeah, they do have that, but they've got a lot of ways of defending themselves there. I mean, obviously the Marauders are more capable probably than they are in some ways, but I feel like although it's kind of ironic that the most precious thing that they have is gasoline, and they're wasting it on flamethrowers. I feel like
well, you got to make a movie, Nathan. Yeah.
That's all they have.
Here's a horrible thought. It's what would the bathroom situation be like in that compound? Can you imagine how gross it is?
Nope.
It doesn't
shut it down.
It doesn't stink as bad as Bartertown. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Oh God. Bartertown is much worse. Yeah.
Adam, you've seen this movie backwards and forwards. That scene. Do you like it, or are you sort of I kind of just wish they let Max be Max?
Which scene?
The Papagallo scene.
Where he's
trying to talk him, convince him to stay.
It's expected that he's going to do that. Honestly, I could see the guy just wanting to get the fuck out of there. I was on board with Max's decision from the beginning, which is I just stumbled into this. I just want my shit back. You're taking it from me. Let me out of here. He feels that he's done well enough on his own this whole time. He doesn't need anybody else. And now he's getting roped into somebody else's problem, which ultimately causes him, a problem. But, that's where I was with it. I'm not really a huge fan of the character of Papagallo, just wasn't. I really didn't like too many of the characters per se. I just liked the overall scenario and situation that was taking place. I really liked the gyro captain. Yeah. He was a bit of a jerk to me. I wanted to see him get some comeuppance or something, at one point in the film. And then he kind of came around when he was dumping the snake and, in the fight and the whole thing.
That seems like such an impractical weapon.
Moment. Yeah.
It's such an impractical weapon, dropping a snake from a
listen, that's what he had.
It had its moments. The film has its sort of lighthearted, almost corny moments that kind of bring it back.
It's a little cartoony.
I don't know what it is, but there's something I don't know, on a deep, subconscious level, the idea of being in a terrible place at present, but there's a promise of 2,000 miles away is a beach-like paradise. I relate to that in general in life, and I'm doing pretty well. I'm not in a bad place, but there's something conceptually about where we are now is the desert of the subconscious with all these people that want to kill you. But if we can just drive 2,000 miles, there's this coastal paradise. And as a kid, I related to that journey. And in the weirdest way, this is so crazy, but Road Warrior made me excited about growing up because I was like, what is my beach going to be? What's my 2,000 mile away, paradise? And I had a happy childhood. So I don't know what it is, but there's something elemental about this movie that strikes some emotional chord for me more so than all the other films. And I like the other films, but this one hits this sweet spot where when he's tricked at the end and he had, dirt in the tanker and the gasoline wasn't there and they snuck off the other way. and he's smiling, and the gyro captain is smiling at him, and they're like, how about that crazy mission we pulled off? And then he just goes his separate ways. I'm just like, oh, that was so epic, man. Like, damn. Oh, I love it.
I have a gripe. All right. If I had a little chime for that, I would do it. But okay, if Max was going to be the diversion for this, which clearly he is, why wouldn't they tell him that he was? Why fill the tank at all with sand to slow down the tank? Or A, why would they tell him, by the way, Max, you're the diversion? Because I feel like that would be useful information. I know this is like, you're nitpicking here, Nathan, but it just seems like they just hand wave all this away. This doesn't make any sense at all.
To me, it might be because they put the dust in to keep the weight of the vehicle so the marauders don't think that the vehicle seems light. But also, if he really thinks he's driving it, he'll do everything he can. Like he'll try harder, believing like it. I hate to say it, but it's like a need to know basis. And if he didn't need to know, it is cruel to him. But like it's like I don't know. I see exactly what you're saying, but I kind of get it. I'm of two minds on that.
Okay, I don't know. I mean, I feel like that's something that he should know, that he's the diversion. I just feel like that's helpful information. And
do you have thoughts on this, Adam?
I agree with both sides, because I like the idea of you don't tell him, because if he doesn't know he's the diversion, he's going all out beyond. I like that a lot. That makes a lot of sense. And look, I'm in a position as a CEO where I have to make decisions sometimes, and that decision may or may not mean allowing myself to give the full picture, because for various reasons of understanding of this person's personality or whatever, I may feel that it's better that they find out later. I do, and have to make personnel decisions more than I ever thought a CEO did. But that's what it is. It's a lot of moving people throughout the day. And that falls back on here. This guy has this decision to make. Do I let him know he's carrying the gold, or do I let him know he's carrying the bricks? And, ultimately they decided, probably had to do with some level of trust, that he didn't need to know.
I hear that. I definitely hear that. Yeah.
I want to be abundantly clear how much I don't care about that, but I do. I super don't care, but I did just think it was like a trust and a stakes thing, and then I didn't analyze it again.
I just feel like, it makes a great ending.
I don't think it changes anything.
No, it doesn't. It works for the movie. I just feel
yeah. There are a couple of visual language things in this movie that I love, because I think where the first one felt Wes Craven-y, this movie felt kind of like a silent movie to me. And one thing, we were talking about the desert earlier, Sam. Yeah. I loved this. George Miller uses the sky so well in this movie. How often do you look out at the horizon and there's nothing? No mountains, no man-made architecture, nothing.
Right.
And that's used so well to communicate time, to communicate the vast emptiness. And also, and this is really dumb, simple, but it works. Good guys in white, bad guys in black.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
like it just
the guys and the people in the camp was almost like they were dressed almost like
shoulder pads.
Yeah. Little Xena vibes.
Yeah.
I just love that shot of like when the tanker is turned over at the end and the dust is coming out.
It's
and then the music is like, rrr, 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 and you're just like, oh man, you've just been watching The Road Warrior, and it's incredible.
Such a good movie.
One thing I want to mention. I love the camp explosion. You don't get to see many great explosions in movies. In fact, they don't do real explosions anymore. It's all CGI now.
Oh.
But this was one of the best explosions I've seen in a film. All practical. It just keeps going and going. There's a large explosion, and then there's these several smaller ones, which they spared no expense with this. I think a third of their budget went into this explosion.
This is such a geeky thing, but do you know which movie has the Guinness World Records for being the largest explosion ever in a film? You would be very surprised. I thought it was CGI. It is Spectre, James Bond Spectre 2015. A desert facility blows up at the end. And if you go and watch it on YouTube, they show the behind the scenes. They blow up this giant thing. It's the biggest explosion ever.
Wait, in Star Wars, when they blew up Alderaan, that was a whole planet that blew up. So that's
true. That should be the biggest one. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
It actually was probably this big.
Yeah, they actually filmed that, and they filmed that in space. They went to space.
They blew up the whole planet.
But that explosion of the facility in Road Warrior is like incredible. Like, they had so many cameras rolling on that, and they like it's so satisfying. I even noticed in the sound design when some like piece of like metal hits close to the camera, they added like a
and you see the tires flying everywhere too.
Yes.
They really did an amazing job on that. Yeah.
It's almost as good as learning about the blues.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Sound.
What do we think?
It's almost as good as learning about the what? What'd you say, B? I was curious.
The Blues Brothers car wreck.
Oh,
goodness. Yeah.
I want you guys to speculate. We need to take a break in a moment here, but I want to ask a question. What do you think Lord Humongous and Wes did for day jobs pre-apocalypse?
Okay, here's a good question. Like, were they born? Well, yeah, I guess they were because Max is alive. I mean,
I think they worked at Burger King.
For sure, they were asking for like imports. That's why they're the bad guys.
Well, wasn't there supposed to be a connection where Goose was humongous? Mm-hmm. And there's also some of the guys have law enforcement leathers and things like that. So maybe some of them had law enforcement backgrounds and gradually became a gang. Yeah, because they had firepower.
I do like that they edited that out where it's Humongous is not Goose. From the first movie.
He's not, but I'm saying, some of the clues, and he's obviously got a pretty high-powered weapon there too.
Yeah,
which probably, as he runs out of bullets, it's almost signifying the end of his reign, because he's a ruler who rules on an iron fist.
I don't know, mic drop.
Wow. And is there any information if Vernon Wells also had this? He shaved his head for the role, but do you think he also shaved his ass?
For sure. 100%.
Okay. That's we need to know that for sure. But okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
I'm a film historian. Vernon Wells shaved his ass.
Okay, good. All right. And I think with that, we should take a quick little break. We would love to get your feedback. You can do that by dropping an email at backtotheframerate@gmail.com or find us on Facebook, Instagram, or on YouTube or Twitter. All those places you can find us. Wonderful way you can help us is by rating and reviewing our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to our show. Please spread the word, tell your friends, family, colleagues, or pets. Share our episodes in your social media feeds. We would love that. So thank you very much. We are going to get to our final thoughts and our verdict in a moment. But for that...
Excuse me, can you help me? I'm in an absolute loss. I've been looking for over an hour and I'm losing my mind. What I'm in the mood for is sort of a Katharine Hepburn-y, Cary Grant-y kind of thing. Nothing heavy. I couldn't take heavy. No, something zany. I'm looking for something zany. Or something modern would be fine too, like a Goldie Hawn, Chevy Chasey kind of thing. Funny. I want to laugh. I have to laugh tonight, really. Oh, do you have anything with that comedian? He's on that show. It's on the radio. The guy, he says, "Hey, forgive me." I get such a kick out of the way he says that. He's so goddamn adorable. That would be perfect. Didn't he make a movie? Ordinary Peepholes.
Each of you, would you like to offer a movie pairing for this film? Let's just say that it's double feature night and everyone here is watching The Road Warrior. What would you pair with this movie if you were to recommend it to somebody for a double feature? Let's go in the order that we did our reviews. Sam.
So it's thinly related, but actually because George Miller was offered to direct this movie, and it does involve a character who an outsider who comes into a town, into an adversarial situation. I'm a huge fan of First Blood, the first Rambo film. And I would definitely recommend that. And it was kind of tough pairing because there's other movies that I would pair it with as well, but I think I may have mentioned them in the podcast. I'm always afraid of repeating myself. So if I've mentioned First Blood before, I apologize. I may have.
You can always go to our letterbox to see all of our movie recommendations.
That's true. And I will do that. But yeah, First Blood, excellent. My favorite of the Rambo films. It's actually the most character driven. He is a Vietnam vet and he is captured by these hick like backwoods cops and they trigger his post-traumatic stress and he goes on a rampage, and it's actually a really well done, exciting action film. Hope, British Columbia was where it was shot. I visited the town of Hope, British Columbia, and you can see a detailed covering of the production of that film from my YouTube channel called Walks of World. And I actually visit the First Blood filming locations in the town of Hope, British Columbia. It's this picturesque mountainous town that's supposed to be somewhere in the Pacific Northwest in the US, but they shot it in Canada. Really good movie. And I was mentioning it before in the podcast, but it was actually this overly long, like 2.5 hour, 3 hour action movie. And Sylvester Stallone had a bunch of cheesy pontificating lines, very like 80s silly. He was so worried about the movie and so disappointed that he thought it was going to be a disaster. He went into the editing room and cut it down to 90 minutes and removed all, if not most, if not all of his dialogue. And it makes it a much better film. It's actually...
Don't think of Sly Stallone, the editor.
Yeah, and I was, when he told that story, I was like fascinated by it because I didn't think of that at all. But he actually like literally fixed that movie. And because of that, it's the movie that it is today. And it's really good. So that would be my pairing.
Nice.
Okay. And I was just checking, it's available right now to stream on Paramount Plus, Pluto TV, or you can get it on VOD.
Woo!
All right, my pick. Now, I mentioned earlier that my interpretation of the Road Warrior to be a modern interpretation of the classic samurai film. Only real difference that instead of mohawks, we have top knots. Instead of guns, we would have swords. So, which is why I'm going with Akira Kurosawa's 1961 samurai classic Yojimbo.
I love this.
Cool.
So this, of course, we got Toshiro Mifune, who was a huge movie star in his native Japan. You could just watch any of his films, especially his collaborations.
Did a couple with Kurosawa too, right?
Did a lot. He did like 25 movies with Kurosawa.
Yeah.
The influence on American films from Kurosawa is huge. Sergio Leone, The Man with No Name, Fistful of Dollars, is definitely the biggest influence. In fact, that's pretty much a direct remake of this. And of course, it was done, I think, even later. That Bruce Willis movie, I forget what it was called. Sam, you're the 90s aficionado. Do you remember? It's a Prohibition era movie about Last Man Standing. Is that? Yes, yeah. That's also a loose remake of this story as well. This film, though, it's really funny. Mifune is funny in this, charismatic, charming. He's got a great smile in this. Every frame of this movie is like looking at a tableau. You can hang up a print of any frame of this movie, and it's great. Kurosawa just puts on a clinic in shot composition. Everything is in this really awesome, crisp focus. There's this depth of field so that you just have this sense of this incredibly immersive world. This movie is not even in my top 5 Kurosawa. But it just shows how great a director he was. I think probably like Rashomon and High and Low, Hidden Fortress, and Seven Samurai. Ikuro. Yep, that would be probably maybe a step above this. So this is definitely.
I love the Hidden Fortress. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Definitely recommend this.
Guys, we have such good taste.
It's a good double feature night. So this is actually on Criterion Channel right now, Max, and you can get it on VOD. So yeah, that's my pick. Adam, would you like to participate in this?
Sure. I think about movies that I saw back around that time when I was young. So that's when you first told me about maybe making a pick. That's where my brain went to first. Yeah. So I'm going to put out there a movie I haven't seen in a long time, but it stuck with me. It's called A Boy and His Dog.
I thought about
apparently,
this.
This movie is also has something to do with the ideas behind some of the Fallout stuff that we're seeing recently, or with the games and whatnot. I'm not really sure of the connection there, but I understand that there is some sort of a connection there in terms of maybe source material or something. But it's unique, fun story from what I remember. It was post-apocalyptic. It was Don Johnson, young Don Johnson, before Miami Vice, and his dog. And the dog could speak to him telepathically. And basically, he was out looking for food and sex, survival mode. And except he was out there with a dog, and the dog was just, I think, helping him to get into the situations he wanted to get to in exchange for, I guess, being taken care of. Because I think that something happened with the dog where maybe it didn't have the fighting skills or anymore, or something like that, due to the brain sort of change to be able to be telepathic. I don't know. I'm going way back. But I just recall he ended up...
This movie sounds insane.
...captured in some way, and he was involved in something where they were trying to... It was like a society of predominantly females, and so they saw him as someone that they could essentially vacuum and use for production, like a cow, I guess, was their mindset. But long story short, it was an off-the-wall... It's another one of these off-the-wall apocalypse, post-apocalyptic, where can life go type of adventures with a single character and their dog. So when he said, what would be something that you might want to pair it with, my brain went there, a boy and his dog. So if you guys want to try hunting that one down from back in the 70s, it could be an interesting film
I'll
to
watch it.
Cool.
Good pick. And I was checking, this is available on like so many streaming services right now. Fubo, Tubi, Canopy, Crackle, Pluto TV, Freevee, Roku channel, and there's like 5 more after that. So you can't not stumble across this movie right now.
I also want to let listeners know that I Googled this, and A Boy and His Dog from 1975 is set in the year 2024.
2024, look at that.
Oh, look at that. Wow.
Oh, no way.
So good time to watch it. See what holds up.
B, what have you got in store for us?
Yeah, so I've been really wanting to use Mad May as an excuse to dive deeper into Australian New Wave and exploitation films. It's a blind spot for me, so it's been really fun to learn more about this and sort of see where this comes from. So I am recommending the movie that inspired George Miller to make Mad Max, which is 1974's Stone. This movie has some of the same actors that are in the original Mad Max, including Toe Cutter, Hugh Keays-Byrne, who's giving an incredible performance. It's also about cops and biker gangs. This movie is about a member of a biker gang who witnesses a political assassination. And because he witnesses the assassination, a rival gang starts picking off gang members one by one, going after them, inspiring an undercover cop to become a gang member and help figure out the murder, causing an uneasy alliance. It's really fun. It's all motorcycles. It's a bike movie, not a car movie, but you can totally see the parallels between this and Mad Max. I think it's a lot more fun than the first Mad Max, but it doesn't have the budget of the Road Warrior. So you still get that like lean, lo-fi, really just fun road movie. It's, that those early Australian films were, big into the sexual liberation. The censorship code had been taken down. So there's just a lot more violence, a lot more sex, a lot more fun. It's loud. It's a great time. I watched it on Tubi this week. So give it a shout.
Excellent.
Nice.
And I did see that you can also rent it on Amazon for $1.99.
Yeah, but why would you watch it on Tubi?
Exactly. Because Tubi's free.
Tubi's free with ads.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you have our recommendations, our movie pairings, all very good picks. Let us know if you watch any of these movies that we've recommended. Send us your feedback. Okay. Now, one final bit of business here. We are just going to make our decisions whether the Road Warrior gets put into our vault or purged out into the fiery apocalypse. This should be a pretty quick segment here. So we're going to go in order here, very fast here. We're just going to do pretty rapid fire because we're running a little late tonight. Sam, what say you?
Yes, put it in the vault. No surprises there. Bird.
All right. I also agree. This is no doubter a vault pick because I also agree. I think this is, I haven't seen Fury Road in a couple of years, so this might be my favorite Mad Max movie. But yeah,
I love Fury Road. I'm excited for the rewatch.
So yes, 2 for yes. B. Well, actually, Adam. Well, it doesn't
I'm a
matter.
yes all the way.
Yes.
It's a hell yeah.
This is unanimous.
High octane,
due to the
yes.
unanimous element, I'm going to have to give it a classic John Malkovich in The Line of Fire. Woo!
Let's indoctrinate it right here. Where is my thing? Here it is. There you have it. You want me to pull a fast one on you guys?
Yeah.
Sure.
You ready to be thrown off by something here?
Yeah.
Something in this field could be releasing the chemical into the air when there's too many of us together.
Don't eyeball me, boy. I see your mother driving up and down the street looking at it. I'll be your stepfather by the week.
It's a bad time, Bob. I'm serious. If I leave now, I'm not coming back.
You ever hear the expression, you got a face only a mother can love?
Let's just stay ahead of the wind.
We haven't done this in a while, and nobody knew this was coming. It's time for recasting this with Mark Wahlberg. If Mark Wahlberg had to be in The Road Warrior, we had to recast somebody. Who would it be?
I have an immediate answer for this. Oh, Sam, do you want? That would be in order if you want to go.
I will simply say I would cast him as Lord Humongous, but without the mask, and he'd be like, "Look, I'm giving you a chance here. Like all we want is you guys could leave. You just walk away. We're not going to hurt you. It's a binary decision. If you go out into the desert, we're going to get you. So just give it a chance. Come on, guys. Fuck." So yeah, Lord Humongous. Anyway, that's me.
Perfect.
Okay.
Wow.
That's all I needed.
and he would actually give Lord Humongous maybe more character as tying it back into our discussion.
Yeah, that's true. I was going to cast him as like Wes's beautiful blonde boyfriend.
Oh.
Okay.
Like that.
90s
Like
Mark
that.
Wahlberg.
Okay. All right.
Golden Boy? I don't know.
What's his name? The Golden.
Is it not Golden Boy? Hang on. We can figure this out.
I'm thinking like Pony Boy or something.
Oh, right. Yeah. I might be making.
It is the Golden something. The blonde. Golden
Let me tell you, it's the Golden Beautiful Boy that Mark Wahlberg should play.
The Golden Beautiful Boy.
He could have been the Pharaoh Kid, you know?
No. God, that kid was. We didn't talk enough about what a shit ass that kid was.
I love that kid, but I can see it both ways. Yeah.
All right. Anyway, it's not a big deal. Let's close the book on The Road Warrior, and that's going to conclude that discussion. But do we want to end it, or do we want to just talk about a couple other things that were in the news? Because I know there was one other thing. It's getting a little late.
Oh, you mean Bernard Hill? Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about. There's a little bit of Lord of the Rings news, and we unfortunately there was a sad passing of Bernard Hill, who famously was King Theoden in the Lord of the Rings movies, and also he was, I think, the captain in Titanic as well. Those were his two most iconic roles, and that was a bit of news that happened this week. Also, there was some other Lord of the Rings news, but I just want to reflect on first Bernard Hill because that was very sad.
It was a big hit. Yeah.
I believe he was the first actor, I'm not sure, to star in two $1 billion movies. Many have done it since, but Return of the King made $1 billion and Titanic made $1 billion. And I think he was the first to be in $2 billion films. If I read that correctly, I could be wrong. But we're talking 2003, not now, because, Zoe Saldana is in every successful movie and she's incredible. But I mean, like at that time, yeah.
Wow. I never thought about that. Wow.
Yeah. Great actor. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he was amazing. He really brought that role to life. I generally think the casting in the original trilogy is impeccable, but he rose above the rest there.
I'll say briefly too, with the Lord of the Rings news that was actually announced today, no details. Working title is called The Hunt for Gollum, which I know will probably not end up being the title, but it's going to be produced by Peter Jackson, Philippa Boyens, and Fran Walsh. They're that team of writer and him. He is not directing. Apparently, Andy Serkis, who played Gollum, is both directing and starring in the movie as Gollum. I am down for Lord of the Rings. I'm always very excited. My only concern, and again, I've read one article and I know nothing, is there tends to be this thing where with the new Lord of the Rings movies from Warner Bros., where they're just like filling in gaps between time periods. Like, oh, let's follow Gollum on this hunt or adventure. Whereas I think they have a treasure trove of stories from the Silmarillion, but I don't know if they have the rights to that. So I'm intrigued. I'm very excited. You know, I'll be the first in theaters to go see it. Know very little about it, but these are first uninformed impressions here in May of 2024, 2 years before this movie will even exist.
I totally agree with you, Sam. I think they might be overestimating the audience's interest in this character. I think there's a lot more actual written stuff that they could be going back to. But I also just, I'm a little leery of Warner Brothers and their relationship with this content, because I think that they're just, I think they're cash grabbing it before it becomes public domain in a lot of ways. So
I hear that.
Cautiously optimistic with the
I'm cautiously optimistic. I wish they would. I would be stoked if they had a plan for like 2 or 3 films that was a new trilogy set in a different time period in Middle Earth. Maybe there's thought. There's probably a lot of thought. I love the fact that Peter Jackson's involved, because I can't imagine him wanting to do it if it was like a terrible story. I just hope that they plan it out carefully, because that world of Middle Earth is so incredible. I don't mind mining it, but boy, they got to be careful, because I don't want a movie to come out and be bad and have Warner Brothers be like, well, nobody wants it, then they abandoned it. I'm like, no, you guys did. It's just like, so I'm cautiously hopeful. Yeah.
I love Jackson and I love the original trilogy, but he's been the victim of his own ambition too in other movies, not just the Hobbit trilogy.
Yeah. So one other thing that was this week, and then we'll wrap things up here. In the box office this past week, I don't know if anyone noticed, was I think number 1 was The Fall Guy, but number 2 movie this week was a 25-year-old movie. The Phantom Menace had a
amazing.
Can you imagine that movie's 25 years old? It took in $8 million at the box office. Where were you guys 25 years ago?
I was a junior in high school, and I bought 12 tickets, and we were all like standing in line to go see the movie. Actually, my father graciously went and bought the tickets because I could not get out of a chemistry class, and then we saw it opening night in Seekonk, Massachusetts, and
Seekonk
Showcase, and I remember being enamored with the pod race and the fight scene, and horrified and shocked by the flatness of the dialogue and the pacing. As a 18-year-old, it hit me like a ton of bricks how awkward some of the moments in that movie was.
So you didn't do like a midnight release? That's where I saw it.
No, it was
I watched it
late.
like
it may have been midnight. It may have been midnight. It was late. I think it was a Thursday. Yeah. It could have been the midnight. I don't remember the details, but it was at Seekonk. It was at night.
It was a rough morning for me the next day when I had to get
and we were like out there late, and I remember one of my friends was like totally dressed up in a costume, and we walked in and no one was in costumes, and he was like, "Where's the scene, man? Where's the scene?" And I actually retroactively liked Phantom Menace more. I didn't hate it. I just was the woodenness of the dialogue and some just kind of I was very sensitive to that, and it kind of hit me, and I was like, "Ouch!" Yeah.
Well, it was a tough morning the next day. I felt like I was dealing with a hangover because I had about 3.5 hours of sleep, trying to sleep. Get back. I was back at my apartment trying to what did I just watch? That was I want to love it, but I did not. And I wrestled with that all night long. Anyways,
I was in the same place, and I'll say really quick, I was just thrilled to see Warwick Davis in the pod race scene, like sitting up, and I was like, yes, Warwick Davis, because I was a huge Willow fan back then, and still am.
Okay,
I was 6.
Let's wrap this up here, Adam. You've been waiting in the wings there patiently as we've been geeking out on some movies that maybe you don't.
I was just thinking to myself, 25 years ago, I was living another life. I was in the advertising industry and publishing. It was a whole other world.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much for joining us this evening on our podcast. And please, once again, plug where people can find you, those websites, any social media, and we'll put those in the show notes.
Absolutely. If you want to check out what I'm up to, you can check out my company, which is Treez with a Z company.com. We have collectibles, memorabilia, and some of the best legal THC and CBD products in the country. We ship all over the country. If it's legal in your state, it goes into your shopping cart. We have 2 locations here right in the Nashville area. That's Treez Company. If you're interested in me as an actor or want to talk about film or something like that, you can find me on Facebook, Adam Ginsberg. I have a website, officialadamginsberg.com. I'm out there on IMDb and SoundCloud and stuff. I'm not too tough to find. I have an Instagram. I think it's Adam Ginsberg Official. So just reach out. I'm always interested in cool new projects, voice stuff or acting or just producing or just even sounding boards. Sometimes I do judging for other film festivals. I recently did some judging for the Chicago Horror Film Festival. Sometimes folks just reach out and want to bounce ideas. If I have the time, I love to talk film, and anything related to it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That is the show this week. Back to the Frame Rate is part of the Western Media Podcast Network. We wish to thank Brian Ellsworth for our show opening. On behalf of all of us, we bid you farewell from our fallout shelter. Your presence in our underground sanctuary is truly appreciated. We are truly sorry you cannot join us, but we want to express our gratitude for your company. If you're finding solace in our discussions, we kindly ask that you please subscribe and leave a rating and review. Your support is a beacon of light that brightens our confined space. Head on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whichever portal connects you to our broadcast and share your thoughts. Until we emerge from the fallout, stay with us, keep hope alive, and keep those reviews coming. This is the end of our transmission. Back to the Frame Rate, signing off.
I want you to know it's over.